Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Friday the 15th, and welcome to our live stream for today. We're still appreciating you just because Teacher Appreciation Week is over and I forgot to change the date on the opening title card. Doesn't mean that we don't still appreciate you. We do. It's what it's like to catch your typos live on air. So we're going to get quickly through the opening today. We've heard that there have been some folks who are having problems with Google Meet, like they get this weird green or yellow screen coming up. And thanks to the help of the ETLs, which stands for EdTech Liaisons, which are, your fellow teachers who hold tech clubs, especially Lisa and Elena from Creekside and Celeste Ward and Alyssa and Carol, just all of them. I could name all 17 of them being really valuable and helpful in solving this problem. But we found that a lot of the teachers who are having this issue don't have their Macs up to date. You need to be to the newest version of macOS Catalina. So if you don't know how to do that, you can, and don't do it right now, you should probably do it at the end of the day today when you're done using your computer. If you go up to that apple in the upper left-hand corner and click on it, you can click About This Mac, and then that should bring up this overview. Now, what you want to do is, see, mine's up to date here, and it says macOS 10.15.4 Catalina. You want to make sure that's fully up to date. If not, you will click here on this software update button. And once you do that, you should see, if your Mac is up to date, you will see this, your Mac is up to date. Otherwise, there will be something here for you to click on to download and install the update. Again, probably want to wait till the end of your workday to do this. But I also want to suggest that you come here to Advanced. And if you click on Advanced, this is actually how my computer is set up, to check for updates automatically, to download them and available to install and install updates from the App Store. And just go ahead and click all those and click OK. Now here's the last thing. In the upper right corner, you sometimes see those rectangular notifications that say, hey, a new update is ready. Do you want to restart? If you're the kind of person, and you know who you are, who keeps ignore, later, and you've been doing that for 2 weeks, and then you're wondering why stuff isn't working, might be, who knows, but it's really important, especially in these times, to keep your Mac up to date and to keep Chrome OS up to date. If in the upper right corner of Chrome you see a red arrow pointing up or a red circle with a white arrow pointing up, click on that and relaunch Chrome to restart your browser and to update it. It's really important to make sure all your functionality is there. And it's almost always our first step on troubleshooting with folks is everything up to date. So there you go for that. So now we have a message from Dr. Hernandez on some key points on report cards and grades. So there's a video.
Good morning, teachers. Happy Friday. I hope you are all doing very well and staying healthy during these uncertain times. Thank you for maintaining your focus, your consistency, and hard work in support of your students, parents, and colleagues. I'm here today to share with you some important key points related to end-of-the-year tasks, including assessments and report cards. Before I get into those points, I wanted to ask you to make sure you get a copy of the end-of-the-year plan, which I have linked to this document with main key points. This plan was created by the COVID-19 and an opening of school year subcommittee. And the plan includes a variety of points related to required tasks for you as teachers, as well as other pertinent information in closing the school year. And it looks like this. So when you have a moment, make sure you review it, as many of the critical points start, or tasks start the week of May 18th, which is this coming week. I am sure this will be referenced during your meet today. But in essence, this is what was shared, and you are to understand as we close the school year. As a reminder, all district required assessments for this trimester for the end of the year have been suspended. So you will not be receiving any materials for administration of assessments like we would, for example, for writing or for in the primary in K2 or for the math in K2. Those assessments are not going to be provided, as the focus of this trimester has been communicated often that is more about engagement of students with you during remote instruction and for you to track their participation synchronously, asynchronously, paper, pencil, whichever approach was needed during this period of school closures that resulted from COVID-19, the pandemic. There will not be a space for you in the report card to enter academic or effort grades. These fields were removed for trimester 3. You will only have a space for comments, and a letter explaining this will accompany the copy of the report card that will be mailed to parents. Instead, the report card will have a space for you to write statements related to the degree of student participation during remote instruction. Let me show you what the report card will look like. Here's a sample of a class. So you'll see that you'll only have the student names when you go in to enter grades. The program participation services will still be there. And then the only space available for you to enter will be the comments area. So when you click on the comments space, the box will open up where you can actually enter the custom statement like you would related to, in this box, related to your students' remote instruction participation during trimester 3. Again, this is information that you can gather from your weekly participation log, which you have been completing for the past few weeks. So in addition to, since this is a new statement and is not included in the drop-down statements that you can select from, we are providing you here a list of sample COVID-19 related comments that you can use for that purpose on the report card. Let me show you what that looks like. So if you click on the link provided, you will get to this document with report card predefined comments. And we're asking you again to consider the sample statements below. And as communicated previously, no letter or numerical grades will be assigned for this trimester when remote instruction has taken place. You are to complete report cards electronically through Illuminate, and teachers are to print 2 copies, one for the students' CUME files and one to be mailed to parents. And here are some examples. So this first one, these first 3 relate to factors, even with factors related to COVID-19 and shelter-in-place orders, the student was consistently participating in remote instruction. So that's one example. Due to COVID-19 related factors, student was not able to consistently participate during remote instruction. And the student that was not able to at all, you could say factors related to COVID-19 and shelter-in-place prevented student from participating in remote instruction, and so on. You can also specify the program that you used to support that remote instruction. I know a majority of teachers have been able to use Google Classroom and/or Seesaw as part of their remote instruction approach. Others have had a combination of teacher made packets or materials and or independent study type packets, you can include those, and there are sample statements here for the different types of opportunities or approaches. These are sample statements. These are not the only ones that you would use, but make sure that whichever one approach you used acknowledges the fact that COVID-19 impacted the level of engagement or participation. And I will state that on the letter to parents as well, explaining again why they are not receiving letter or numerical grades for trimester 3. So let's quickly review the main key points that I've shared today. Again, please take a moment to review that end of the year plan, which is linked here. There will be no trimester 3 assessments. Those have been suspended, as were the state assessments, SPAC and LPAC for this year. There will not be a space for you to enter effort or academic grades on the report cards. Those fields are not available. And instead, you will need to write statements related to the degree of participation during remote instruction by your students. Please feel free to email your site administrators, your principal or your assistant principal, and feel free to email me as well if you have any questions related to the points that I have shared today. I will be more than happy to email you back, or you can call me as well. My district extension is 2010. And my cell phone is 831-809-0588, which is part of my email signature. If you don't find it, you can find it there, 831-809-0588. Remember my email, esteban.hernandez@alisal.org. And that's it for today. Again, thank you for your hard work during this trimester of remote instruction. Have a great Friday and have an awesome weekend. Please make sure you take a moment to enjoy the sun. Maybe go for a nice walk. Thank you for listening and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Okay, so we've gotten some comments that the font is too small. It's a video, I can't make it larger. However, Dr. Hernandez did share the document that he features in the video with us. And when we post this video and today's slides to remoteinstruction.org on the Livestream PD page, we will post that document for you as well. He also asked me to add that all those comments will be available in Spanish on the report card as well, that he hasn't forgotten that our bilingual families, and those will be available as well. So thank you very much, Dr. Hernandez, for that. Again, as we say every week, if you need help or support, please email edtech@alisal.org, as opposed to emailing either myself, George, or Celia individually. It goes to the whole department, so nothing gets stuck in email limbo. George and Celia have office hours Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on Google Meet. If you check the EdTech Weekly, you can find the link. And now we're going to go to George and Celia. I think Celia is going to lead us in record keeping and data monitoring, featuring Google Classroom and Seesaw. I think Celia's up first with Seesaw.
True. Oh, no, it's not Seesaw. We're actually starting with Google Classroom, but I am starting.
Excellent.
Okay, so here's the link to the presentation. If anybody's interested, it's down at the bottom. So you're going to go to bit.ly/recordkeep. Record and keep both have the first letter capitalized on them. And so while we get that started, in case anybody wants to jump onto the presentation, you can get onto it now. Just remember that we'll also, hopefully by the end of the day, once the video is done processing, we will update our remoteinstruction.org website with the entire live stream video and also a link to these slides. So if you don't get a chance to open them right now and follow along, then no worries, we'll get the website updated and you'll get caught up. And so we're calling this session today Record Keeping and Data Monitoring. And if you read the email that Josh sent out yesterday and today, we're going to be looking at some more advanced features of Google Classroom and Seesaw for Schools. I'm going to be covering some of those features for Google Classroom, and George is going to be covering those features for Seesaw for Schools. So that being said, we're going to start with why we're doing all of this. And so I think first and foremost, we were looking at that 2.0 survey that we sent out to teachers. So thank you again for filling that out. And a lot of what was said in that survey was teachers mentioning how they're having a hard time keeping track of all the work or keeping track of records and grades. And we're getting pretty close to the end of the year. And so we had this information shared to leadership just yesterday, which was that document that Dr. H shared with us this morning. And so we're trying to address those needs. We're trying to make sure that we can stay connected with students and meet their SEL needs, even though we're not being required to give a letter or a numeric grade per se, but we're more so tracking participation now instead of mastery of content. I know from ATA's side, ATA reps have been notified of how the state could potentially ask the district for some kind of record keeping in terms of just accountability and state and federal funding. And so that's another one of those things that we're just going to have to do now. As we start thinking about next year also, because we're not necessarily aiming at tracking mastery, we do, however, need to start thinking about next year. And so knowing that this year has had so many special considerations, we're going to need to start thinking about how to identify those gaps that students have, identifying any learning that was lost, and trying to come up with a plan for next year. And so helping both the teachers in the grade before us and the grade after us to try to come up with some kind of plan on how to address those needs from their students. And so we're trying to think ahead as well as trying to address some of the current needs as well. So right now, the current requirement, as briefly mentioned by Dr. H, looks something like this in a weekly participation log. And we're being asked to mark whether students are fully participant, if they're inconsistent or not present at all. If you have any students on independent studies, you would mark it on this log. But so this is what's happening. And just a word that we don't necessarily want, we're not sending you the message that we're replacing this, because we're not. Again, like, this is something that is required. But again, for the reasons I just mentioned, we do need to think with a little bit more nuance, I think, than just this. So yes, we want to keep track of participation, but we also need to think a little bit more specifically in terms of what students can and can't do, making sure that us as teachers are organized and we're keeping track of all our records. And so we're just adding on some more tools to help you stay organized.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, remember, this is something that was negotiated through an MOU, so nothing that we are sharing here today says don't do this document. So we cannot stress that enough.
Okay, so we're going to move on to Google Classroom. I'm going to just give a quick overview of some considerations, and then we're actually going to get to like a live demo so I can show you a couple more things. But first and foremost, if you want to use Google Classroom's grading features, specifically the Gradebook, you need to check your settings. It's something that needs to be enabled inside of your classroom settings. Otherwise, it defaults to not being on. So if this were the page for your classroom, you're going to go up to your settings in the top right corner. Once you're inside of those settings, you're going to have 3 options. Your screen is going to look like this down toward the bottom. If you scroll a little bit, you'll get to a section that says grading. It'll give you some information if you want. You can go in to learn more, but there are 3 options for grading. If you click on the drop-down menu on the right-hand side, the first option is no overall grade. So that just means you're opting out of automatic grade calculation. The second option is a points-based system, which I think of as like the traditional like averaging out points. If you have 50 on one assignment and 100 on the second assignment, then your grade is averaged out to a 75. And the last option is weighted by category. And so if you want to weight different categories differently, so that maybe essays are worth 50% of the grade, quizzes are worth 20, reading comprehension another 20, right? Each category is a different weight. Then you would click this third option for your gradebook. Once you've decided what kind of system you want, if you clicked on points-based grading, you're going to get to something like this where you can add grade categories. So I just made this as an example, but these categories, you can add them or remove them to whatever categories you feel are best. And so if I had a category for essays, for example, the only thing that it's going to ask you here is to give it a default point value. So if your essays are normally worth 100 points, then you can just default it there. Once you're done adding all those different categories, just make sure you save up at the top, and that's pretty much it for points-based grading. If you pick weighted grading, you're going to get a very similar screen, except that under grade categories, you're going to add your categories as you see fit. And the only difference here is that because it's weighted, you don't input a default point value. You're going to add in how much weight of a percentage you want this category to be weighted for their grade. And so if 30% of the grade comes from essays and 30% from quizzes and maybe 40% for reading comprehension, obviously these percents need to total 100% of the grade. But you can add as many categories as you want. If you only want 1 or 2 categories, that's fine. These are fully editable. But that would be if you're doing weighted grading. From there, you're going to go into your assignments. So as you're assigning a new assignment, as we've shown you before on Livestream, right? This is what it looks like when you're assigning an assignment. Title, description, maybe you attach a file. But in order for your gradebook to come through correctly, you're going to need to attach a grade category to your assignments. So even if you've already pushed them out, you can go ahead and just edit them. But right here on the side next to points, you're going to click a drop-down menu, and the categories that you just made on the previous screen are going to show up in this drop-down menu. And so I'm just going to go ahead and click the drop-down menu and select which category fits this assignment. Because this assignment was writing, then maybe I click on essays, and now the grade for this assignment will be calculated into the essay part. Here's just a little quick note, because we had some learning recently, so I was like, oh, we should tell you all about it. If you're using Google Forms as assignments, one of the nifty things about them is if you attach the quiz into an assignment, you would still add a grade category. So this is a quiz. I would attach the Google form to this assignment. But one of the nifty things is that there's a little toggle here that allows you to automatically import the grade that's automatically calculated in the Google form into your gradebook. So you don't have to do any like transferring over of scores. It automatically happens. Just make sure that that's toggled on. We figured out, shout out to Paul. Woo, Paul and I figured out recently that we can only have the Google form attached here by itself. So if you have anything else attached, like a mini lesson, a Google Doc, anything else, it will automatically disable importing. And so if you do want to use that feature, make sure that the Google form is there by itself. Just a little tidbit. So now you have your grading set up. You've made your categories. You've attached those categories to your assignment. And so once you start grading things, things will pop up into your gradebook automatically. So in this situation, this is just a sample of the gradebook. I only have one student enrolled, just again for sample. But in this example, for this writing, this student scored a 60, an 80 on the quiz, 70 over here. Looks like they're missing some work, but they did turn in this. That wasn't graded, it just has a little check mark for turned in. But you'll notice that even though I have scores in for this particular student, there's no overall grade being calculated here. And so again, it's just one of those things where one of those nuances that you learn as you use this, but one of the really important things about Gradebook, especially in terms of calculating the overall grade, is that you need to remember to return the work. And so if you didn't return the work, you would get that screen where it doesn't have an overall grade, even though everything is graded. But as soon as I went back and I returned the work that this student had turned in, I returned it to them. Now I get the automatic calculation. So just make sure you're not missing that step after you've graded everything, is to return it back to the students to get the final grade calculation. I've had a couple of teachers tell me that they want to export grades. And so really the only export options are either copying to a Google Sheet or downloading as a CSV. I think for us, there's no real need for a CSV. A CSV is a really plain text file. We really don't need it because we have all the Google tools. And so if you really did want to export grades, I would probably go ahead and export to Google Sheets. And it's a little interesting to find this option. So if you can look at the screenshot that I have here, this is actually within an assignment. You can't export the entire gradebook from the gradebook. I know, sounds a little strange, but you're gonna have to click into an assignment. So this is the writing assignment, and I would have everybody's work here and my list of students over here. But there's a little wrench inside of any assignment. If you click on a little wrench, then you get these two options to export. And so if you did want to export all of your grades onto like a Google Sheet, you have to do that from inside an individual assignment for whatever reason.
And just to be clear, that will download all the assignments, not just the assignment that you're in.
Correct, yeah. Copy all of the grades onto a single sheet. Yes, true. Okay, so to finish up, I'm actually gonna switch over to my demo classroom just so I can show you what the workflow is going to look like. Here is just a sample that I have. I have one student just hanging out. This isn't a real one, but here's my classroom. Remember that the workflow is going to have to be, okay, I'm in my classroom. I need to make sure that my settings are correct. So once I'm inside, I'm going to click the settings, scroll down to grading section. Right now, I have no overall grade selected, so it's actually not calculating anything for me right now. I'm going to go ahead and go to points. I like points. That's just me. I'm going to set up my categories with the default points, which are already there. And I'm going to go up to the top right corner and make sure you click save. Settings are done. Now I'm going to go into classwork to send students an assignment. Inside the page for your assignment, right, we're just going to sample, test, test, test. I can attach something if I need to from my Google Drive, but just because this is for an example, I'm going to skip that part. But really important part is to make sure you select a grade category. So under grade category, I'm going to go ahead and click whatever category this is on. You'll notice that it automatically adjusted my points based off of that default that I had set in my settings. So whatever you selected, it'll default to that automatically. So just to save you a step, I'm going to make sure I have a due date. Let's go with this Friday. I'm not going to put it on a topic. I guess I should put it on a topic. Let's add a topic. What's this Friday's date?
It is the 15th.
Next Friday.
No. 22nd.
I trust you, George. Okay, so all that's done. And I'm going to assign it to my students. We're halfway there. I'm actually going to switch to my Google Classroom from last year because this next part, the actual grading and returning that workflow is, I think, better seen if you actually have students and student work. And so here's my classroom from this past year when I was still in the classroom. I have some classwork, have a bunch of work. I'm going to go into a writing assignment that I had sent to my students. I will view the assignment. And if you aren't familiar with this particular page, it acts as kind of a summary of everything. You get a list of students over here on the side. I can enter scores directly from here, but you really wouldn't be able to do that unless you also have the assignment open. So like, how would I know that Anthony's work is a 6? I couldn't just by looking at this page. I need to actually open it. All the students' work is here in the center part. You have a summary of how many are turned in, who has not turned it in. So I know that 2 of my students have missing work, but 17 have turned them in. You can sort over here by, again, who has turned it in, who hasn't, by first or last name. So there's all these things inside of there, but I'm actually going to go ahead and click on one of my students' work to call attention to this page, which is maybe my favorite page for some reason. I don't know. So just so you know what's happening in this part of the process, once I've assigned an assignment, then again, in order to get all my records straight and grading and calculations ready to go, I need to actually grade all the work and then return it to students. And so as soon as I clicked on this assignment and opened up the first student's work, I get sent to this page. This page allows me to both view the student's work, which is here in the middle. These are just the sources that I sent them, but this second document should be the student's work. Directions. Where's his work? Ooh, wonder if it's somewhere else. And I would insert the grade here. Like I would just write insert. Because this was writing, I actually did private comments with also numbers based off of the rubric. So like this first digit, this is just me. The first digit is actually their organization score. The second one is their evidence score. And then their usage score is their last one. But then I would total it and enter it here. If I wanted to scroll to the next student, I would click up here. There are 2 scrolling, so I can either just go, instead of having to go back to the assignment and click on the next student, I can just scroll through. I can look at this person's assignment, read it here, give it a grade here, enter private comments. I can click this drop-down menu and go and like find a specific student. If I was like, oh, I need to look at this particular student, then I can open that student too. I can sort from here again, first name, last name, or by status. If I know that there are some students who are missing, or by last name, by first name. There's also a little comment bank right there. that second button, you can make your own custom comments, very similar to the way that we add comments to like a report card, right? So you can add comments to reuse quickly on assignments, and then they'll be there for you. But I think, again, because part of the process is, okay, I'm going to read all of my students' work. I'm going to assign them a grade. This little button is maybe the most important part of the process if you're using the gradebook function. You need to return the work after you've graded it. So I read the student's work, I grade it here, I give any private comments here to my student, I'll post those comments, but I need to go back and return it to them. So I can return them one by one as I'm reading these. So I'm done with Monica. Let's go to the next student. Let's go to the next student. I will read, I grade, and then return. Once that's done, I'm actually going to go back to the gradebook now. So I'm done grading all of my students' work. And now that I've done that, it's going to be showing up in my gradebook. And so that particular assignment that I was looking at right now was the end of the year writing. And so now I have all that here. I'm actually going to go back to the sample class, just because it's a little bit less information. And just to point out that there are some kind of hidden functions in the actual gradebook view too. So you can grade straight from here. Like these are all editable. So if I wanted to assign a grade straight from the gradebook, you can do that. Again, if it's something like writing, well, you would need to have the writing open to be able to grade it. But you can do that. You can return work from the gradebook. So if I wanted to return this piece of writing to my student, I would click on the little snowman and just click return. That option isn't available for me right now because I've already returned it to my student, and so I can't do that. If I want to look at what they turned in, I can view the submission. I can go up to the assignment, edit the assignment, delete it, or return for the entire class in just one click here. So again, it's just little things that you might want to look into as you get organized. And I think I'm going to mention one more thing, because I have 8 assignments here and 1 student, so this isn't a whole lot of information. But again, like if you're starting to plan for next year, if we're starting to plan and think of how we're going to help those students who have holes in the learning, or how you're going to potentially at this point start the next academic year still relying on some form of digital learning, then you may end up with a whole lot of assignments and a lot of students and a lot of information. And as the teacher, it could end up being a lot to manage. So the last tip I have for you all is this little box right here. This box gives you some reminders. It tells you what's upcoming. So due on Monday is this writing assignment. I can click on it and it'll take me straight to that assignment. Due on Tuesday, there's a quiz that students have. And I'm going to call attention to the View All button that's down here. If you click on that View All button, you get to the to-do list for you. And so it gives you a list of all the work that's in progress for that classroom. So right now I'm looking at this homeroom 1920 of mine, which is just, I use it as a sample. And here are all the assignments that I have assigned my students. And it gives me, right, and at a glance, how many students have turned it in, how many have been graded. So if you look at this reading quiz, I've already graded that one. Yay for me. But if you have something that has been turned in, for example, but you haven't graded it, then you can see, oh, look, 10 people have turned it in, 5 people have turned this in, and I need to grade them, right? So this is just a way for the teacher to keep track of who has turned things in and what has been graded, what needs to be graded. And so again, it's a to-do list for teachers. If you get everything back to graded, right? So if this assignment, nobody new has turned it in, and nobody's pending, and I have graded what has been turned in, I can go ahead, click on the snowman and mark it as reviewed. When I do that, it removes it from my to-do list. Again, it's an active to-do list, and it actually moves it over to the reviewed side. So obviously I still want access to all those scores and that work. It just now has switched it over to reviewed so that I know that I'm done grading that assignment, and that it's been finalized and it doesn't need my attention anymore. And so again, just a reminder that you can get to that to-do list from this little reminder box, but you can also get it from the pancakes, friends. So over here on the top left corner, next to the name of your classroom, there are the pancakes. If you click on the pancakes and scroll down a little bit, there's a to-do list. That will get you to that same screen, except that will get you to all of your classes. So if I have a lot of classes, because I like to be wild like that, just make sure that you click on your current classroom, and it'll just give you the assignments that you need to review as the teacher on that page, right? These are the works in progress versus the ones that I'm already done reviewing. Okay, that being said, I think we are going to go.
We have some questions. Can we stop for some questions? We have a little bit of time.
Never mind.
Some of these are pretty simple. One from Ms. Griffith.
Yes.
You're asking, Jen, how do you magnify when we're zooming in and out? We'll do a screencast on that. Perhaps share that tool. That's a really cool tool. It's actually a setting that's built into Mac OS, and we can definitely create a screencast to show you how to do that. And we'll try to have that out maybe on the weekly on Monday. So there's one. We have a few questions. One of them is, first of all, Josh, thank you, Josh Ezekiel, for shout out to you for sharing some of the stuff with regards to Google Classroom, that he knows that Google Classroom has a built-in rubric on it, which is pretty cool, rubrics on there. Sure. We're not going to go into that, but that is an option so that you can grade using rubrics. Thank you, Josh. The question that Josh had was, can you go to slide 10, Celia, of our presentation?
Yes.
And he wanted to know, could you please repeat how to make a Google Quiz course transfer automatically to Gradebook?
So the only thing that you need to do is attach the Google form to your assignment. So I would go to add, then click on the assignment. You know what? I'm actually going to do this live. So let's go back to my classroom. I'm going to make a new assignment. Well, here's the thing. There are technically two ways. Don't you just love Google for that? You can either create an assignment and then attach the Google form, or click on quiz assignment. The only difference here is that if you clicked quiz assignment, it automatically generates a blank quiz in the form of a Google form for you. So it just like saves you that extra step of like first going to Google form, making the form there, then attaching it to the assignment.
So if I already have a quiz that I've created, I would use assignment. But if I want to create one on the fly, I would do the quiz option.
Right. So here's my sample assignment. Click on the category for quiz, change the points, due date there. And then I'm going to add from my drive. I'm going to find the quiz that I wanted to attach it, and it should automatically check the grade importing box. Like I didn't do that. I just attached it and it selected it for me. So just having that enabled will automatically transfer the grade that they get on this quiz in the Google form into your gradebook. It does mention a couple of caveats here that in order for that to happen correctly, you need to make sure that you limit the form to 1 response per user. You need to make sure that the form is collecting students' email addresses so that it knows where to send the grade, and that you need to restrict responses to the Alisal domain. And again, just a little tidbit, don't attach anything else, just that, and that will stay on, and that's it. Just make sure you go ahead and click assign.
So we've actually gotten 2 good questions
Okay.
from, first of all, we have this from Josh and also Ms. Marroquin at Loya.
Yes.
So the question is, can we take a look what this looks like for a student when you've graded it, an assignment that's graded for them? Can you show that interface, what it looks like? Because I know you just go to the student, you know how you had that student account on there? Could you open
But that was like an actual person.
Okay.
That's why I'm like, I can't, like I have that one student on here, but that's like that's an actual teacher who was like helping me. Like
Oh, that's true. Yeah, we want to make sure. Yeah. So, you know, Miss Marroquin and Josh. So what it does is it actually on the students, they actually have a place, you know, a window that pops up where it shows what their score, if it's 7 out of 10 in the middle, and then it'll actually have any private comments on there. It's really, really nifty for students and to show them where they can check their progress. So I'm sorry that we don't have anything specific, but perhaps we can find something to add to the weekly. So we'll keep that in mind too. Sorry about that.
Is that it?
That is it. Those are all the questions for now.
So I'm gonna go ahead and get the timer started, and once we're back in 10 minutes, we're gonna hand it off to George to get us some Seesaw advanced options. So we will see you back in 10 minutes.
Great.
Don't think I muted myself though. It's still here, isn't it?
All right, and we are back. So really quickly, while we were on break, I went ahead and did a little work on here. So I wanted to show Ms. Marroquin and Josh what it looks like for the student experience. I'm glad I did it because it looks different than it used to look. But let me go ahead and show you what the student would see on here. So here is here's what the student classroom looks like. I'm in the class on here. If they go to classwork, here's the assignment. There's only one assignment. This is just a demo student. Notice that for the student, it says that it's already graded on here. So it actually says grade. So if you want to view the assignment so they can actually see what's in there, a student will see here a few things. Number one is they will see their score. So in this case, it's 90 out of 100. Okay. The student will also get to see any comments that are to the whole class. So if the teacher said, you know, I noticed that a lot of you are forgetting are using the incorrect word in your essays to the whole class, you can set that on. They would see them here. However, if the teacher has given a student a private comment like, you know, work on your writing so that you're more specific, so that you're showing rather than telling, they would see their private comments over here too. So that is what the student would see. Now, one more thing is the student could send a private comment back to the teacher also. Maybe they want additional help or whatever, so they can send a comment back to the teacher so they can see that. So that is what it looks like. It used to look different. So I'm glad that Ms. Marroquin and Josh asked this question, but that is what it looks like for students. All right, so wrapping that up, we're gonna go ahead and continue with you know, some of these advanced features in Seesaw, and we're actually gonna cover, three things in this presentation. We're going to go ahead and talk about folders in Seesaw. We're going to go ahead and talk about skills and standards. So the skills and the standards, there's some crossover on there, but those are the basic things that we're going to cover in Seesaw. Some of you have seen or we've mentioned these things in the past and wanted to know more about it, which is why we are continuing with this. So let's get started with folders. So one of the things that you may be asking is like, why do I need folders? Well, one of the best reasons why is so that you don't need multiple classes. We know, especially with the little ones, that if they have multiple classes, they could be posting into the wrong class. They could be entering the wrong class. So the best thing, so one thing that you can do, especially for the little ones, is instead of creating different classes, you know how PowerSchool created 7 classes for each of us that have classes. So you don't have to use those classes. Instead, you can use folders, and you can create the folders, label them how you see fit, math, ELD, ELA, for example. So there you can see that these 2 posts or activities have been assigned to a folder. This will also allow you for easy sorting. We'll talk about that in a little bit. It also allows you to have portfolios by subject. And one really cool thing that I thought about is, imagine creating a folder for each student that's called, you know, my best work or my scholarly work, and then they have the choice to what goes in there, or you as a teacher got stuff in there, so they can have kind of like the portfolio that they've created. So, you know, that's an idea for implementation on here. And finally, you know, especially as we start thinking about parent-teacher conferences in the future, one thing that you can do is, you know, if I click on any of the students on here, so for example, if I'm having a conference with Barbara's parents, if I click on her name, it will just show her work. And then when I'm looking at her work, if I just want to look at the math work, there'll be folders, and I can click on just Barbara's math work. So very handy tool that filters a lot of the work for you. So those are uses of folders. So how do we get started though? All right, so just like Celia was talking earlier, we can't say enough, it starts in the settings. By default, these are off. These settings are off because they're more advanced settings. So what you want to do is you want to go ahead and click on the wrench in your class once you're inside of your class that you want to create folders for. And then in the settings, you will get this dialog box. You want to scroll down to a section called folders, and you have 2 options there. You have manage folders and show add to folder step. So we'll talk about the first option on here. So if you click on manage folders, you will get this dialog box right here. And if you already have folders, they will be listed here. If you don't have any folders, this is what you will see. And you can simply click create folder. And when you click on that, you're going to get the option to name the folder whatever you want. And then you want to go ahead and select the color for the folder. You know, I know some teachers use colors to represent certain subjects. So think about how that could fit for you. And then, just like everything Seesaw, to confirm, you want to press the green check mark button so it saves your settings on there. So that's the first in creating a folder. Now, there's an additional step on here that you see here. It says show up. It says show add to folder step. So what this does, if you take a look right now, it says teacher on here. So when you click on this, what this does is anytime you create an activity or a post, if you turn this on, and here are the 3 choices that you actually get when you do this. Oh goodness, what's going on? Wrong button here. You will get these 3 choices on here. So the choices are, you know, never show up the dialog box. Allow it to only show up when teacher is posting or when teacher and students are posting. So you can decide which one of these 3 options you want to do, but I wanted to let you know what this dialog looks like. And again, if you select never, this dialog box is never going to show up. If you select teachers, it will only show up for teachers. This is a dialog box. There you go. And if you select students, it will show up for students and teachers. So what that means is that when you click on that, you're creating an activity or a post. Before you share with everybody, with your class, with your students, or before a student turns it in, if you have it turned on for students, they will get this dialog box where they can say, okay, where you can say, for example, this activity is math. So I'm going to go ahead and, you know, you'll create the activity, and then you add it to once you create the activity, a folder dialog box will pop up where you can select this, a math activity. Now it will be tagged with the blue for the math folder. Now, a couple of things. If you wanted to add folders, you can actually go ahead and do it from here. So here's create a folder. And one more thing that's really cool about Seesaw for Schools is you actually as a teacher have a private folder that only you as a teacher could see on there. So if there's a certain piece of work that you want, you know, for a student, maybe you want to use it perhaps during an IEP or some kind of SST or something that you want to keep private, though, or you can actually go ahead and create, that activity or that post to a private folder that only you as a teacher have access to. So that's what that little lock icon on the bottom right is, and it's only available for Seesaw for Schools. The final thing I wanted to go ahead and show you on here is, notice that there's 2 options on here, folders and skills. We're only make sure that if you are clicking on the folders tab, not on the skills one. We'll talk about skills in a little bit on there. So there we go. That's how you add a folder. And then to confirm that activity or that post has that folder, you would click the confirm green check mark, of course. So that's how you add. The folders. Now, you can also add folders a different way. This is the other way, and I did want to let you know this because some of you may prefer to do this. Some people may prefer to add folders after the fact, and I want to go ahead. After the fact means after students have turned in work, after teachers have posted assignments or activities to students. I apologize if you can hear that noise behind us. We're trying to produce a show here, and we have the lawnmowers going. So I'm sure you've never felt that way before. All right, back to our regular program here. So I wanted to let you know, so here's my class, and what I want you to let you know is that if you had any folders attached, a little louder, to this post or this activity, it would show up in this area here where you see the little green, the little red laser pointing. However, as you can see, this activity does not have any folders attached. So what you can do is, you can go ahead and click on this folder icon right here, and then it will take you to this dialog box. And from here, I can go ahead and label this activity or this post after the fact, not as I was creating it, after the fact that it's been turned in, work's been done, into the SEL folder, and then it will look like this. Can you see here? Can you see here? Here's SEL. Now it's labeled with an SEL folder on there. And please note that you can go ahead and actually connect, label activities and posts with multiple folders. So earlier I said about, that let's say you want to create another folder called, my best work, you can go ahead and put that this activity, this post under SEL and under my best work, so it can show up in multiple places. And of course, here's the private folder. If you want to go ahead and add this activity or this piece of work to a private folder that only you can see, that is also an option by clicking here. And again, just like always, confirm with the green check mark button. And if you need to create a folder that you don't see here, like I don't see my best work folder here, I could click here and just create the folder like I showed you in the previous slides. Okay, so there you go. So that's how folders work. Now here's a tip for you, which hopefully you're getting more comfortable with this. Just click on things. So if you want to use, if you want to go ahead and use the folders and filter by folders under Class Journal, you will see this little folder icon here. And if you click here, it will actually go ahead and give you this dialog box. And now if I just want to filter my ELA assignments, then I would click there. And what I get is, I'm going to show you this cool little video. Now you can see here that we have the little red ELA ELD folder, and over here on the left hand side, this little video shows that only the ELA and ELD assignments are showing up. So that's one way to filter. Okay, and again, I'm going to go ahead and play this one more time for you. But once I click here, you can see all of them labeled here on the bottom left with the ELA ELD folder. Okay, so that's how you would filter if you just want to take a look at one particular subject's ELA, math, or whatever the subject is, or the folder. If you want to view that, that's how you would view it. Hope that was helpful. Which leads us to the second part on here, and it's skills and standards. Adding skills and standards to activities and posts. I would like to say that there might be some of this. There's some kind of crossover between skills and standards. There's some skills that are embedded in the standards. So there's I may use skills and standards interchangeably as we are going through this. So with skills, it allows you to track skills. It allows you to track standards mastery. Remember that we are in a new learning era. This is not an expectation. That's what the little asterisk means. This is not an expectation for the 2019-2020 remote learning year. So I don't want you to feel pressured by that. I just wanted to let you know that this is a possibility of why you would want to use skills and standards. It allows you to track the number of pieces of evidence for each skill or standard. Again, it allows you to filter by standard, topics, and so forth. We'll talk about that. And then again, another great tool for parent-teacher conferences, because it allows you to just show that particular parent's child's work, that particular child's work with whom anyway, speaking on there. But yeah, so whatever student you want to show the work to the parent, you can click on that particular student. So again, back to settings is something you need to turn on. You go into settings, and towards the you'll see a tab. You'll see a section called skills, and there's three main sections under these skills: manage skills, skills rating scale, and the skills color scheme. All right, we're going to go ahead and get past the managed skills. We'll come back to that in a second. So let's go ahead and start with the rating first. So you can select, right now my rating scale is 4 stars, but you can actually select between 3 and 6 stars, for rating as a scale. So you can select what you want on there, and once you've selected that, you will also get to select the color scheme. You have a few options on here, and what I want to share with you is that if you choose, in my example that I'm going to show right now, I've actually changed this to 3 stars, so I'm only going to have 3 colors. So when I click here, notice that now we have 3 colors on here: red, yellow, and green. All right, and you can choose any of these that you want. Now, what I wanted to share with you is that while there's 3 colors here that you can select from, there's actually a 4th color. And that 4th color is when a student has not turned any work in at all. And then those students are designated as gray. And I'll show you an example of that in a second. So I thought, why not give you a little bit idea about possible implementation with what we're doing right now. So here's my little implementation idea. If a student is on independent studies, they're obviously not going to be doing any work, even though you're assigning it to them in Seesaw. They will always show up gray, all their assignments, and I'll show you that in a little bit. If it's red, it'll be not present. You know, if it's yellow, I want to say, my goodness, I forgot what the I stands. Inconsistent, but present, participation, and then we have present and participating. So those, just a little implementation tool, you know, tip that if you want an idea on how you could use this. Okay. So now I told you we were going to come back to this managed skills piece on here. So a little information regarding managed skills. Currently, our Seesaw for Schools, Seesaw automatically pushed out the standards and the skills that are related to ELA and math. So those were automatically done, and we all have access to those skills. However, you may need to add your own skills, perhaps something that you're just working on in your class, or perhaps you're working with, you know, maybe you have a folder called PBIS, and you want to add some, you know, some skills that students are working on. You can do that yourself. So when you click on the manage skills, you will get this dialog box on here. Notice that you can archive skills. And if you don't have any skills, this will probably be empty here, and you will go ahead and be able to add new skill. So when you click on add new skill, you will get this dialog box. These are skills, by the way, that you can use next year and the year after, or you can use these skills on multiple assignments. So it's not something you're going to be doing every time. You will create this, and then you'll tag an activity or a post with the skill. So a couple of things. While there's a lot of information you could include in here, the only two things that are really required are the name and the quick code. See the little asterisks down here? Those are the only two that are required. The rest of it, the rest of the section on here, it's just for filtering purposes, just to help you filter information out. So it's not required. Some of you may be asking, where do I get this quick code on there? Well, it's a quick code is something that actually you create. So it's nothing special. It's nothing like some secret code that you need to know. In fact, in a second, I'm going to demonstrate how to add a science standard here. Okay, and we'll start with the standard. If you wanted to add that as a skill or a standard. So why don't we go ahead and do that? And just like earlier, I showed you two ways to add folders. I'm going to show you two ways to add skills or standards. The first way that you can do that is right from your library on here. Okay, so if you've created an activity and you want to attach, you know, you want to go ahead and make sure that you go into My Library, because remember, those are the only activities you can really edit, the ones that are in your library. So here I have an activity that I would like to edit. So when I click on that, here's the activity. And what you want to do is, once you get in here, there's the three, as Celia likes to call them, snowman. Maybe in this case, the snowman is laying down. But when you click on that dot, you will see the edit activity. Okay. Now, one thing I want you to notice, I want you to pay attention to this little area here. Okay, because this is going to change after I add a skill. Right now, all we have is that it's topic science and it's 6th grade. So when you click edit activity, this is what the edit section looks like. And I want you to pay attention down at the bottom. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a place where it says more options. And when you click on more options, okay, this is what pops up. And now, notice that right now there's no skills attached. So this is the little skills icon, by the way, this little cap and tassel, the graduation cap here. And then notice there's no skills attached. So we're going to go ahead and edit a skill. So when I click there, this is the dialog box that will pop up. So a few things to point out about these skills. Okay, I told you that all the ELA and math standards are already in here. So I could go to the search bar here and just type in there math or ELA, and it'll just filter only the standards that are related to that. Celia, something to add?
Actually, no. This kind of is answering one of the questions that we got. So Claudia at BRB, you were asking how to use the skills and standards efficiently, because if you open just this list, there are over 350 of them. And so I think she's just looking for a more efficient way to like maneuver this.
So that's a great question. So like I said, the search option is really cool because you just filter out and you just want the math ones. Now, the other option is, notice at the top, you will see the recent. So if it's a recent activity that, if it's a recent skill or standard you've been working with, it's going to show up right here at the top. So hopefully that'll eliminate, that'll make it a little bit easier, Claudia, getting access to the skills and standards that you really want. They'll be at the top here. Now, if you scroll down to the bottom, there's my little icon that says scroll down to the bottom. You will get the ability to also add a skill here. Okay, remember, 2 different places to add it. So I'm actually going to go ahead and show you what the adding a skill actually looks like here. So when you click there, I start with the standard. So those of you that have been already jumped into next generation science standards, this standard probably looks familiar. So this is the standard. I got it straight, I believe, from the CDE website. So, and I just pasted it on here. So I'm taking that to create my skill or standard in Seesaw. So there's my dialog box that I need to complete. Remember that I only need the name and the quick code, and then I can click the check mark and save it. However, I like to filter things and I like to, organize things. So I'm going to complete all the sections mostly, with the exception of one. I probably should have added here category. I probably should have added NGSS for next generation science standards here. So that would have been a way for me to filter that. But notice here's the title, plate tectonics. The quick code, I just took it straight from the standard. So here's the standard. Now that's my quick code for me. And then science is the subject. NGSS could be a category. And then here's the description of the actual standard that I just got from this section here. So once you are done, you click the save, this little green confirm button in Seesaw. And now what I want to let you know is you will get this dialog box here that'll tell you you're going to tag it with this standard. And by the way, you can tag more than one standard or skill. Click that, confirm, and now the activity. Take a look at the activity now. Remember down here, told you to take a look at attention. Now you know that there's one skill attached to this activity. All right, so that's how we add skills and standards. Any more questions coming in, Celia, or should we just continue forward?
Let's see. There was somebody who just wrote in who said that, who's asking if the standard should show for everybody, because she says that they're not showing on her end.
Okay, so that could be a couple of things, and perhaps we can have a Google Meet with regards to that. It could be it shows up if you are, you got to make sure you select the right grade. We got to make sure your settings are correct, that your grades are correct, and that you're actually using Seesaw for Schools. That's only a feature of using Seesaw for Schools. So that could be some of the reasons. I think the best way, since that's they should be showing up unless there's something set up incorrectly with your Seesaw, which we can definitely later on will be available if you want to, call us in and we can try to find out what's going on with your account.
And then somebody else is asking, how like when we change the sign-in method, it signs students out and then asks them to re-log in. So Mr. Martinez is asking that if he starts adding tags and folders or skills, is that going to also happen to his students?
All right, good question. Yes, first of all, if you make any kind of system-wide changes, they don't take effect until a student they may have to re-log back in. I think that's the question on there. Now, related to that was, if a student has already turned in an activity and you've gone into the activity and added that skill, that won't be added to that assignment that was already turned in, only to future, only to those that are coming. But you saw how even you can go back and one by one add the skills or the standards to each post or activity one by one. Okay. I hope that was, I hope I answered your question there. So how do you get to the skills tab? So once you have skills, once you have worked on them, if you click on the skills tab in your class, this is what it could look like if you have work. On the left-hand side, you will see your students. On the top, you will see your skills and standards. On the right-hand side, you will see your filters. Now, what I wanted to show you on here with regards to the filters is, remember that I can filter by a category. So earlier in my standard that I created, I didn't add NGSS. If I had added that, I would have 5 categories there. I can also, remember earlier, I could go by subject on here, so I can filter by subject. I can filter by student. If I'm having a conference with Barbara's parents, I will click here, bring it down, and select just Barbara, and it will just have her work. And again, if you're looking for a particular standard, maybe you're looking for, the plate tectonic standard, you click here. Notice that there's 368 available standards. I've only tagged 4 on there, so you will get those, the tagged ones. When you click on that, the tagged ones at the top, and then all the available ones below.
George, am I going to have all the standards from all the grades available to me?
Good question, Salia. Not planted at all. No, actually, you will only have, if in your Google, if in your Seesaw class, you are a 5th grade teacher, only the 5th grade standards will show up for you. Is that okay? Yeah. Right. So what I learned this the hard way, because I had set up my class as a 6th grade Seesaw class, but I was trying to add a 5th grade standard and I couldn't find it, and that's how I discovered that. So good question. Gotcha. So I was talking about, these different sections on here, and if you want to see how filters work a little bit better, there's a little video on here that you can watch. It's only about a minute that you can watch that actually shows you how that works. And once you get access to this presentation, you can watch that on your own. But honestly, to me, the most important part is the stuff that's in here in the middle. Notice earlier we talked about how gray could be a student that's independent studies. So let's say Barry here, who's third student, sorry, it doesn't line up. And Barry was an independent study center. That's why this would be all gray. Okay, and here's a student we have with a 1. The red, remember the red could represent, not present. The yellow could be, what's that word again? So I keep forgetting. Starts with an I.
Inconsistent.
Inconsistent part, and present would be yellow, and then you have red, and then you have green, the green option. So anyway, what I wanted to let you know is these numbers, though. What do these numbers mean? Okay, what this means is that for Barbara, I have 5 pieces of work that tells me that she is, in this category of green. This is, I believe in this example, the highest category is the dark green. So she would be, at proficient. So that's what this means. And here, this one would be for Bruce. Batman's a little bit, stoic. So he only has two pieces of work on here. And if you click on any of these numbers, it will actually show you the pieces of work related to that. So when you click on that, here we go, 2 pieces of work that tell me that this student is actually a 2 on here. So, and note it, so very cool on there. So once again, you just click on these numbers and that work will pop up for each individual student. So I thought that's a really cool thing that I didn't know that you could click on those and see what's there. But a little tip for you. So what I want to show you now is the actual workflow, very similar to what Celia did. What does this look like in action? And before I go into the workflow, I wanted to let you know that what I've done is I've already pretended, I've already have a student that I created. The students have already turned in work. And now what I'm showing you is actually the student, the teacher experience on here. What does it look like for a teacher as they are, and I'm going to show you with regards to filtering, with regards to folders, and with regards to skills. So let's go ahead and go to a live demo here. If I can get my account on, let's go to, oops, this is my Seesaw account on here. Let's see if we can open this up correctly. I apologize here.
And Jen, this might answer your question. So her question was like, so how do you actually give them a grade? And so cool. This is exactly what George is leading up. It's like you're reading his mind.
Yes, thank you, Jen, for being engaged and keeping me on my toes here. So as you can see here, so here's my Seesaw class. So what you want to do, a couple of things I wanted to point out is, as you can see here on the left-hand side, this activity is already labeled with a folder. Okay, now if I scroll down here, notice that this activity here is not in a folder, or they don't have a skill either. If it had skills, it would show the number here that shows how many skills on here. And so this is so you can go ahead and add skills and folders on here. So if I wanted to, on this activity, to add it to a folder, remember, I simply click on this folder here, and then I get this dialog box. I also want this to be in, maybe it's SEL and math. So I click there and then I confirm. And now you can see here, now this activity is in 2 folders. So yeah, you can have them in multi-folders. So that's how folders work. And remember, you can add these at the beginning when you're creating the activity or post, or after the fact, like what I just did right now. All right, so that's with folders. Now for activities, you will note down here at the bottom that it says that I have 2 unapproved posts. yeah, so somebody's turned in some work. So I think this is what Jen was talking about. How do you grade them? So I'm going to go ahead and click down there, and then it's going to take me to these 2 posts. So there's 2 pieces of work on here that have been turned in. Now, I wanted to show you that this one right here already has a standard, a standard or a skill attached on here. And if I click here, I can actually just go ahead and grade it. And then, and if I make a mistake, I can just clear it. See, so I can just go ahead and grade it there. And then what you can do is you can send it back to the student. Sorry, not send back, approve it. Then you would approve it. Remember that when you send back, that sends the draft back to the students because maybe they missed something, they forgot something, and they do it again. So they approve, sends it back as graded to them. Okay, so that's how you would could do that on there, and that's when it already has a skill or a standard, tagged. So let's take a look at this other one. This is a math one. Notice that this one does not have a folder or a skill attached. There's not. It would show up right here on this area. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to go ahead and add. Let's add it to a folder. So click that. I'm going to add it to the math folder. Confirm. Now it's in the math. And I'm also going to go ahead and add a skill. So if I click this little icon here, all my skills are going to pop up. Notice here they are all the way down. If I scroll all the way down, actually all the way down at the bottom, you will see that add new skill if it's not on there.
There's a question about trying to find the NGSS in this list.
So good question, because what's happened is, I think I shared this earlier, my understanding is that Seesaw only automatically pushed out the ELA and the math standards.
Oh.
Now, what could happen is, and I'll have to talk to Josh about this. I haven't let him know about this. Josh Harris, our director on here, letting him know now live in front of you, that what we could do is next year when we set up our Seesaw classes, we could push out the NGSS standards so that so that everybody in the district will have access to those, and you don't have to put them in there manually like I did. So I hope that answers your question. All right, so sorry, we're back to the point where we're going to be adding a math standard to this activity. So one thing that I can do is I can go ahead and just type, I can type in math, and now what's happened is here are, when I type in math here, then it just has filtered all the math standards on here. And notice that because my Seesaw class is 6th grade class, I only see the 6th grade standards. So here they are being posted, the 6th grade standards on here. Okay, so let's say once you find the standard that you want to tag to this activity, it's a matter of just simply clicking it and then making it in green. And you can actually go ahead and grade it from here too if you wanted to. So I can actually I can actually go ahead and grade it right in here. Or if I just want to tag it, I can click tag. And now what will happen is, notice how it added it. It added the new math standard on here. And now I can grade, so you could have graded it when you were adding it, but I could also grade it here. Okay, great work there. And now what we have here is this, this standard has been graded there. And now that you've done this, again, remember, you can approve these one at a time, but once you've taken a look at them, you can approve them all if you want to. So I'm gonna go ahead and approve them all. And now those have been returned over to students on here. As you can see, I have nothing else to work on here. So let's take a look at the skills here. So remember, to access the skills, you click on the right-hand side. And then on the left-hand side, you're going to see the work for my students on here. So again, the gray could represent here that Bruce is on independent studies. And, and in this case, probably for Barry, for example, here, it says there, I know he's not on independent studies. So this really should have been red because they're not, they didn't turn anything in. They're not participating. They're not present and participating. So that's how, that's what it looks like, the skills. Now the filters on the right-hand side on here, I told you earlier that you can go ahead and click, I have 6 categories here. So if you click down this little drop-down arrow here, you will see the different categories. Click it back if you don't want that. If you want students, maybe you just want to go ahead and like say you're having a conference with Barbara's parents, you click on Barbara. And now the only thing that you see here will be Barbara's work. So this would be all her work on here that you would have for Barbara. Okay. So that is really the way that skills and standards work. And one thing that I wanted to let you know, I know we did this live here. Let me go back to my presentation here. If I can find it, there we go. Oops, wrong one. So while I did this live work, we do have a couple of slides on here in case when you go through the slide deck, you need additional, you need the steps static. So there's a couple of slides that shows you how to do this, 2 additional slides that shows you how to evaluate work in both different ways, option 1 and option 2. So that's there for your reference. We also have here on one of almost our last slides some resources. We have resources for Google Classroom that can help you with the gradebook and how to use the gradebook on the left-hand side. And over here on the right, we have, some resources for you to get to know better on how to use how to tag skills and standards and how to use folders. So a lot of good resources there for you. So we're down towards the end of our time, so we have some questions, Celia.
We have some Seesaw questions, and then we actually had some like lingering Google Classroom questions. So I think we're going to start with the Seesaw question since you have that up right now.
Right.
And so you showed earlier that there was that little lock icon. So one teacher at Frank Paul is asking that she has used folders, but on her account, she doesn't see that lock that you have. Where does she, how does she get that? Why does that show up?
The folders have to be, I believe folders have to be turned on. So let me go ahead and go to my live account here, so you can kind of, so I can try to show you how to do that correctly. Oops, there's the account here. All right. So what you want to do is you want to go make sure that you go into the wrench on here, and then you want to make sure you probably don't have folders turned on, folders on. So you want to scroll down to.
Can you create folders without doing this step? Because she said that she has created folders.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes, so you can create folders outside of that. It's just that private folder, it could be that she's not. So when you go here, let me go ahead and show you actual folders on here. So when you click here to folders on here, you because you create them from here, and if you don't see that lock one, the private one, it could mean that you are not on Seesaw for School. So again, that is something that is only available for Seesaw for School. So we need to get everybody on that, on that page. So again,
so this is for Ms. Lopez and Frank Paul. So maybe she can reach out.
Yeah, chime in with us. And reach out. But you can create your own folder. So so I'll give you an example on here. Yeah, I don't need to turn anything on. I could go ahead and click here, the little folder, and just create a new folder. I can do that. Again, you will not see this if you are not in Seesaw for Schools.
There's another question. So I think this teacher, it's like she's like thinking ahead and like, what's the like foreshadowing what's gonna come down the PD bike. I think she's thinking of like the end of the year, because she's asking from Fremont, is there like one big folder where you can put all of the kinder work together? So she's thinking about the end of the school year wrap up and putting everything together to save it for each student. Since she's like mentioned how there are all these wonderful things that the students are doing. And so I think that's what she's thinking.
We definitely, how much did you pay her, Celia? We definitely, down the line, as we get towards the end of the year, we are planning on having kind of some PD on best practices when it comes to the end of the year with regards to these digital environments, Seesaw and Google Classroom, and what to do that. So we will be having an upcoming PD on that. However, just remember that once we get our students signed in to Seesaw for Schools, that portfolio will follow them to first grade, second grade, third, all the way to sixth grade. So if a parent is connected, that work, they have access to all that work. They could go, if they're in sixth grade, they've been in Alisal, they could go back to kindergarten and see some of that work that that students have done in kindergarten in the future. So that you don't really need to do anything. Now we will give you some tips on the PD about how you maybe organize maybe some of how they can organize some of the work, so you could have it in a portfolio with but really all that work is available at any time to a parent and to a student, as long as they are as long as they stay in our district and they're connected and they're and we keep staying connected to Seesaw for Schools. Which I think kind of also answers another question that we just got from MLK, is asking about whether submitted work is saved for the rest of the school year. It's not just this school year, it's like for the rest of their schooling Alisal career. And some of you may be a little bit like concerned, like especially with activities, that if you want to archive an activity, when you archive an activity, maybe, you know, 20 out of your 30 students have done it, it does not, if you archive an activity, it does not delete it, the work that the student has done. It will show up on their portfolio over the years.
There was one question about if you want to sort of monitor the assignments that have been completed by students. So the question from Fremont and Sanchez is asking, I want to know how many assignments each student has left. How would I be able to check that in Seesaw?
I can't think of anything specific besides if you're attaching skills on there, you would be able to see on here, perhaps, you know, if you see zeros on there, this would be one way to go ahead and take a look. So Barbara, as you can see, Barbara has turned in all her work here. But, you know, here you can see that Barry is missing these two posts or assignments on here. So that the only thing that I can think of.
Each skill could have more than one activity.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. Yeah,
sorry.
Go ahead. That was it.
There are some more questions. I think we might have Josh answer this next one.
Okay.
There was one question, and then there's some more Google Classroom questions that I can show really quickly. But there was a question from, there it is. Okay. So somebody is asking, what's the purpose of exploring grading features like these or remote learning when the district is only requiring those comments for report cards? So I think Josh is going to start that off.
Okay, Josh, you want to answer that?
Sure. I'm unmuted and my audio is good. Yeah.
You're muted.
Oh, no, I'm not.
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I think this is a really good question, and I kind of want to walk back to the question for a second. It's not just that the district is saying no grades this year. The state, and I'm not really sure how many teachers know this, but the state has held that we must hold students harmless. In other words, we cannot affect their grades because they haven't been able to be at school. So it's not that the district isn't requiring grades. It's basically that the state has said you have to hold students harmless. However, so that's one thing. The other thing is, I think if we look past the name of the tool and consider the wider functionality, there's a lot of reasons why we're doing this today. First is hopefully, I think folks have seen that in general, these quote unquote gradebook features have functionality, if we look past the name of the tool, that are really good for teacher feedback to students on their work, to automate that workflow. And I think everyone watching either live or the video would agree that students have a really hard time growing without teacher feedback. That teacher feedback is a key piece to student growth. The second thing is, I'm about to hit one of our favorite buzz phrases in the last 2 months, the new normal. The second thing is, we don't really know what next year is going to look like. We could open remotely. We could open in a sort of hybrid model where we're in person with kids some days and not in others, or we could all come back and just be covered in masks and latex. But we will need to keep these digital skills sharp, and we will need to keep them to grow even farther, I think. I think it will be really important that we will need to develop further skills and better workflows, and to make ourselves more efficient at the tech side, as well as better teachers using the tech. The next thing is, if we are remote, the state might walk back on that hold harmless statement. The state might end up asking us to start giving grades because, you know, one trimester without grades is one thing. You know, no state tests, no district tests, all that. That's part of the hold harmless. But the state may come back and say, okay, you've had 3 months to practice this. It's time to start doing formal assessments, and it's time to start doing grades again. So we want to be prepared. We don't want to be scrambling for that at the end. Third is, and this is the one I'm most proud of, is that these are the things that your colleagues asked for in the second round needs assessment. Teachers said that they wanted to know these things and to go deeper into Classroom, into Seesaw. in things like workflows and student feedback, etc. And so we're trying to address the needs of the here and now and the teacher demands of here and now, but also look towards the future that may come and do what we kind of call future-proofing our skill set. Celia, are you guys going to address any more questions?
We are indeed.
Okay.
There were a couple questions that I'm actually probably going to go back onto Google Classroom for. Mrs. Granger-Mineo at VRB was asking about being able to see what the students see in Google Classroom, since we had that one, or a couple teachers asked that, and so she's wondering if there's a way to add yourself into your own Google Classroom so that you can see what the students see. And unfortunately, there isn't. For whatever reason, you can't add yourself onto your own Google Classroom as a student. So if I tried to do that and I tried to invite myself, it's not gonna let you. The other workaround could have been just use another email address that's outside of the domain. Unfortunately, that doesn't work either. So there's no easy way of being able to do that, unfortunately. But it'll get easier with trying. Right now, I think we're in the very nuanced situation that we don't have students in front of us, and so we're not in the physical space, and so we can't see what they see. But that's not always going to be the case, and so the more we get comfortable with these things, the better.
I'm going to talk to them about the little question mark at the bottom left corner.
Sounds like you do, George.
I do. So just so that you know, the Google team with regards to education is very responsive, and a lot of the features that they keep adding, to Meet, to Google Classroom, have been at teachers' request. So if you want to request a feature, click on that little question mark on the bottom left-hand corner, and you can go ahead and if enough people, get your whole staff to do it at a staff meeting. If enough people will send it through, then eventually Google does add a lot of these things. It does keep evolving. That's why it keeps changing, and they're pretty, receptive to those kinds of things. So
that's true.
There's a tip.
There's another question about communicating with parents and trying to see what this looks like for parents' side also. So this is just another quick little tip that under parents, you can add guardians to your list of students. And so if I wanted to invite a guardian on here, I'm going to use George as another guardian. You invite them, they sign up. And once they sign up, again, this is just another one of those settings things. You need to enable these things called guardian summaries. And those guardian summaries will send a summary of late work, posts and announcements, upcoming work that isn't late yet, but that it's upcoming. So parents can get these either daily or weekly reports. And there are examples here, but I do also want to call attention to our very awesome, best in the world website, remoteinstruction.org. It looks like this, under families and familias. Because I understand that it would be useful for teachers to know what goes into those reports. It's equally as important for the parents to understand those reports. And so if you click on families and familias, scroll down a bit, there are 2 screencasts that George and I made, one in English, one in Spanish, that walks parents through how to connect to those accounts. So if you are using Google Classroom, it shows parents how to connect to Google Classroom, how to get those summaries, what they look like, what it means. And it also does that for Seesaw. So once you connect to your child's Seesaw classroom, can you see, what are the functionalities there? And they exist also in Spanish. So if you either for you or parents and families, you want to see what those look like, I would direct you to this particular resource here.
The other option could be for them to go to our live stream PDs, because we actually did a whole believe, 2-hour PD on connecting families and creating community in the classroom. I don't remember the date on it, but look on the live stream section. There is a whole PD on that actually shows you, if you want a little bit more information on how to set that up. And I believe it does have examples of what it looks like, what a report looks like in there if you wanted to see.
I have one more point about the Guardian summaries for Gmail. Actually, 2 more points. One is we stress so often about things needing alisal.org accounts. Guardian summaries obviously do not need alisal.org accounts. They wouldn't be very useful if they did. The second thing is, Celia talked about things that were late and things that are upcoming. And some of our parents have actually complained, well, I can't see what's upcoming. So there's 2 things. That function in Guardian summaries only works if we make sure to assign due dates. So if you don't put a due date because it's a recurring assignment, then it doesn't make it into the Guardian summary. So if it's a recurring assignment, say it's like a reading log and it's due every week, what you should do is give it a due date of, the Friday of each week as an example, and then just change it every Monday. The reason they aren't seeing upcoming assignments is because teachers don't put them in until the day of. So we have had some parent complaints saying, like, I don't know things are due until the day they're due, or I don't know it's late until after the fact. And it's either teachers aren't using dates or they're just dropping them in. Now, that's dependent on how teachers work and how they are organized. And again, we're not mandating anything, but on Mondays, if you submitted a plan, if you put a plan in to Google Classroom with a due date of Friday, and maybe it's just a simple Google Doc where a student's view only, and it could be worth 0 points, then that summary could go to parents and then they could see. So Guardian summaries work really well if we do 2 things: make sure our work has due dates, and the other thing is put assignments in more than just the day that we're giving them, if possible.
And while we're on the topic of Guardian summaries, if you're inside of a Google Classroom Gradebook, another way to get to those Guardian summaries and to look at work by student, because again, like this, with more and more work that you add, I only have a few assignments, but once you get into a lot of assignments, if you go ahead from your gradebook, just click on the name of the student, you're going to get to a summary page for that individual students, and it'll default to giving you the view of everything. It'll tell you scores, it'll tell you what's missing. But if you want to filter out by, okay, I don't want all this information again, because eventually this list will get long, and I just want to see the things that are missing for that student, I can filter by just what's missing, or I can filter by what they've turned in. Hasn't turned in anything apparently, because this is just a sample class. And if you want to, from this page also, you're able to contact parents if they're connected. So it'll tell you under their name that there are guardians that are connected. George hasn't connected because I just invited him. But if I wanted to contact these guardians, I would go up here to the little email button. I get a dialog box where I can select that I'm sending a message to guardians. This is just a test message. And if I want to include a summary of their work, I just need to make sure that I include that little check mark and then send them an email. And so this process will also send a work summary to guardians with whatever message you insert here as well. But it also, when parents sign up, they'll get the option of either getting daily work summaries or weekly work summaries. And so you don't necessarily have to come in and do this manually yourself. Parents will automatically get that, but that's another option in case you do want to be in touch with them.
Thank you, Paul at Steinbeck, for helping us find that, because I didn't know that, and I thought that's a pretty cool feature. So let's see here. There's a question with regards to Seesaw. By the way, those of you that are asking with regards to the Illuminate and the report card and all that stuff, know that all your questions have been forwarded to Dr. Hernandez. And I'm sure that if you haven't heard about it, you will be hearing about it in the upcoming week, because that was just shared with leadership yesterday, I believe. So those of you that are looking for those comments, just be a little bit patient with that. A question that's come up on here, and this is with regards to Seesaw. I didn't see any more with regards to Google Classroom. There's a question with regards to Seesaw, Celia, and maybe I can go ahead and take over on here. It's like, if you want to see your students' activities from previous years.
Oh.
So remember that this is really our first year. Let me go ahead and take over the screen, Celia. I'm gonna gotta come back in because technical issues here. I'm on mute on here. Okay, so I'm going to share my entire screen one more time so I can show you how to do this. All right. So one thing you want to do, remember that this is really our first full year of Seesaw, Seesaw for Schools. So this will be moving forward. And what you want to do is, just so that you know, when you click on your classes on the left-hand side, you're going to see your classes that you have on here. So these are my classes that I'm active in right now for this school year. However, if you were looking for last year or previous years, down here actually up here, there's a little cog here. If you click on the cog and then you go to account settings, let's make sure, I think that's the right place on here. And you scroll down to the bottom, you could see manage archived classes. So now when you click on that, you can go ahead and actually, you will have to restore these classes.
So you mute. It's just showing Celia's picture. No one can see your screen.
Are you sure? I'm sure.
Yes, I'm watching the live stream.
Might be a little bit behind. I think it's a little bit behind. I fixed it. Okay. All right. Sorry. I apologize. Apparently at the beginning of this, I was not sharing my screen.
No, it's something still going on.
Still not. Sorry. There's something. My computer.
Can you just stop and just do it again?
So we'll go ahead and start again. Apologize there. My computer crashed and I restarted it and it didn't get me back in correctly. So let me get back in. Thank you, Josh, for letting us know about that. There we go. All right. So as I apologize. So we'll start again. So as I was saying, Miss, I believe this was at MLK for a teacher at MLK. Remember that this is our first year with Seesaw for Classes, but all your classes that have been archived from previous years, and again, there's a PD coming up on this, so this is definitely going to help you as you move to the future. So click on your name on the top left-hand corner, and then I have 2 active classes. Here's the little cog here, and then you want to go to Account Settings, and under Account Settings, I can go ahead and scroll down to the bottom where it says Manage Archived Classes. If you click on that, it's going to show all your Manage Archived Classes. I can go ahead and restore one. Okay. And now, when I do that, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here and go back to the left-hand side of my class. You will see that I have now this other class that I've created, Barden Test Class Only. And now you would be able to view, I don't have anything on it because it was just a test class. You would have all the activities from for the work that students have done. Remember that activities, you don't need to come into archive classes to use activities. If they're activities, they will be in my activity library from year to year. Those will carry on. It is only if you want to see the past work of a student that you would want to do what I just did, which is to restore an archived class.
Speaking of archiving, there actually was another question about getting rid of the classrooms in Google Classroom. So maybe you can quickly show them, even though, again, this is kind of, it'll be part of what we talk about when we're thinking of closing the year. But this teacher wanted to know if it's possible to get rid of all the classrooms that they might have and to just show their homeroom.
Yeah, so a couple of things with regards. So notice these are all my classes on here. Just a couple of tips that you may not know. If there's a little face of a person, it means that you are a student in that class. Okay. If it doesn't show that, it means that you are the teacher. So as I wanted to say is, so let's say this class here, I'm not using this class in Miss Castillo. Sorry, Miss Castillo on here. Actually, no, I don't want to do that because I don't want to mess with her class. Let's go with this test class on here. So if you're done with this class, notice that you can also rearrange them. A lot of people don't realize that you can actually rearrange them. But these 3 dots here, when you click here, you actually have the option to archive the class. So when you click archive, just so you know, it does not delete the class. It kind of gives you a warning as to what this does. And you click archive. And now what it does is that class has been archived. Now, some of you may be wondering, ooh, I archived the wrong class. How do I get that back? Well, you click on the little, what do you call this, Celia? The little hamburger icon here. Is that what you call it?
No, they're pancakes.
Pancakes. I say hamburger. She says
they're
pancakes. And then here's all your classes. But then down at the bottom, down here, you see this archived classes. You click there, and now these are all your archived classes that you have on here. Here's the one that I accidentally archived. I click the 3 dots. I'm going to go ahead and restore the class because that was an accident. And then it'll give you this little warning here to restore it. You click that one more time, and you will get your class back. You click here and go back to my classes, and now you will see that my test class is back where it should be.
Stephanie, so if you're talking about Seesaw in terms of classrooms, I think that was the confusion, like calling them classrooms. We can, so again, very similar to what George was saying, yes, you can archive classes in Seesaw too. So it doesn't matter which platform you're on, they can be archived.
Except the ones that have been populated by Clever or those cannot be archived. An administrator has to archive those.
They can be archived,
but not by the teacher.
Yeah. So if you need one of us to do that, Stephanie, feel free to email us and we can help you with that. Let's see.
But any classes you create yourself, which you don't really want to do
exactly
because they're populated, those you can archive. But the ones that are pre-populated by Clever through Power School, an administrator, whether it's here, has to archive those.
Okay, I think that might be it. There are, again, a couple of questions that are left that I think might be specific or individual. And so we might reach out to some of you individually. A lot of the specifics about grading and report cards, as George mentioned, we'll get clarification from Dr. H. So we might send this back over to Josh to close this out.
Okay, everyone. So we're going to go ahead and we're just going to kind of reiterate what Celia just said. Remember, Dr. H was pretty clear on all the ways you could contact him in his video, his cell phone, his email, his office extension. Remember that a lot of those where the comments, I don't see them yet, those should be directed to Dr. H. He's the grand poobah of all Illuminate. So esteban.hernandez@alisal.org. We will pass those questions along to him, but we don't necessarily have the answers. As a reminder, we will probably find them out in the course of asking, but as a reminder, also the in Spanish comments are coming as well. We hope you have a great weekend. And did you all realize that we have now officially completed 2 full months of remote instruction? It's our 9th week, but spring break was in there. So 8 weeks, 2 full months. Congratulations, you made it. Did you think you could? Did you think you could do all the things that you've learned to do in the last 2 months? Remember, growing hurts. That's why they're called growing pains. But you've made it. We're not done, #yet, but you guys can do this. You got this. We are so proud of you, and you are just amazing at serving our students. So, as I say every time we close, be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and be good to our kids. Have a great weekend, and bye.